Welcome to Starbound. My name is General G, and it is my honor to be your narrator today. Before we begin, exciting news. Our official website is now live at starbounduniverse.com. There you can explore our channels, discover new series, and meet the narrators. And you can also pick up exclusive merch to support us. Now, if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get written versions of the stories sent to your inbox every week, along with character lore and sneak peeks of upcoming series. Check the description for the link or just head to starbounduniverse.com. Now, let's get into today's story. The first war crime was the quietest, almost peaceful. The View, projected on the massive holoscreen in the Coalition Defense Academy's Modern Warfare Ethics Lecture Hall, was from a soldier's chest cam. It looked down at a serene, white-robed Tenebrian, a pacifist, peace-loving species, humming a soft, melodious tune. The soldier's own gloved hands entered the frame, raising a blocky sidearm. The humming stopped, a single muffled shot. The Tenebrian collapsed without a sound. A wave of shocked gasps washed through the dim room. No one had expected the case studies of this class to be this brutal. "Professor, that was an execution! This is butchery masquerading as strategy!" The voice belonged to Cadet Oren, a Centauri whose tall, avian form was rigid. The violet and emerald feathers of his neck crest bristled with indignation. Professor Morka, a massive walrus-like tuskar, whose scarred backplate bespoke a long career, did not turn. His tusks, yellow and chipped, clicked together once. "Noted, Cadet," he rumbled, his voice like grinding rocks. "These final cases come from a single operative." He gestured to the screen. "That was Case Study Alpha." Nearby, the containment suit of Cadet Plixus, a jellyfish-like glim, clouded as its internal light flashed a panicked, sickly yellow. Visceral conflict was a physiological poison to the glim, and the sight of it was a direct assault. "Next is Case Study Beta," Morka announced, his voice devoid of emotion. The holoscreen flickered, the perspective remaining fixed to the soldier's chest. They were moving through a landscape where the air wavered with a heartless haze. A structure like a great tree of spun glass and light dominated the view, thin veins of light tracing paths through its trunk, accompanied by a low, vibrating hum. "By the stars," Oren breathed, his anger replaced by awe. "A gay and strange seed of life. I've heard of it, but I've never seen such a mature specimen." The soldier on screen raised a wide-barreled dispenser. A thick orange chemical sprayed forth. Or the muffled report cut him short. "Look at his gauntlet!" one cadet choked out, pointing a trembling appendage at the screen, which had frozen onto the soldier's armored hand. Scratched into the plate was a crude drawing of a jackal, its head cocked, its lips pulled back in a permanent, unsettling grin. The grinning jackal. Oren's feathers were now a fully erect, spiked halo of fury. His voice shook with revulsion. "Anubis's hounds, the 13th Special Operations Group. I've heard the stories. They're not soldiers. They're humanity's shameful excuse for apex soldiers." As the word echoed, the door hissed open, spilling bright corridor light into the gloom. Professor Morka's tusks clicked softly. The crucible was set. A figure stepped inside. He was human, dressed in a simple gray uniform. His movements were sparse, measured. He moved towards his usual seat against the far wall, his back never exposed. It was Cadet Liaison Caedmon, the lone human exchange officer, returned from his mandatory weekly off-site psychological evaluation. The light from the hollow projector caught the patch on his shoulder. In place of the Coalition emblem was a small patch depicting a grinning jackal, identical to the one scratched into the armor. A collective gasp. Plixus's suit, which had just begun to show a faint flicker of light, immediately went dark again. Orin, still standing, slowly turned. He looked from the killer on the screen to the quiet man. His beak hung slightly open. He raised a trembling finger. "You? That's your unit? You're him! The butcher from the footage!" Caedmon stopped. He turned his head slowly, his gaze falling on Orin. His face was a mask of profound, abiding weariness. For a long moment, he said nothing. His hands, which often carried a slight tremor, were perfectly still. Then, ignoring Orin, he walked to the lectern where Professor Morka stood unmoving. "Professor." His voice was low and raspy. It was not a request. Morka gave a nearly imperceptible nod. The stage was his. Caedmon's fingers moved over the hollow projector's controls. He rewound the footage, freezing the image on the serene Tenebrian. "What you see," Caedmon began, his voice flat, "is a shell. The Tenebrian who owned this body died 3 days before I pulled the trigger. This is a Koteri shepherd wearing its skin, a psychic parasite." He paused. That hum wasn't a song. It was a hive mind broadcast, a psychic lash driving 2.8 million Tenebrians in the Undercity to march into our lines. Living shields. His jaw tightened. One shot freed them all. The air in the room grew thick. Cadets who had been rigid with outrage now slumped. He switched to the second clip, the glowing tree. "Your seed of life was reaching critical resonance. 20 minutes from detonation. When a Gaian strain spore pod fruits, it doesn't create, it liquefies. 80,000 colonists would have become nutrient soup. The entire biosphere a breeding ground." He met Orin's eyes. "My defoliant brought them another sunrise." He didn't wait. He played the last clip, the cold dispatching of his own squad. For the first time, his composure cracked. A muscle in his jaw twitched. His voice, when he spoke, caught on a single word. "My squad," he swallowed. "Carrion weavers got us. Microscopic, burrowing. No cure, no treatment. 1 hour until—" He stopped, started again. "They became lures. The parasite reads memories, makes them scream in voices you trust. Your mother, your child, your brother. When you get close enough to help—" His hand made a sharp, explosive gesture. "Spore burst. We were point team for the evac fleet. 150,000 civilians behind us. One infected reaches those ships." He looked away from the screen. "I gave them clean deaths. Quick, before they could become weapons against their own people. That's what we do. We weigh hearts." The room was utterly still, save for the hum of the projector fan. Orin stood frozen, his magnificent crest now limp and pathetic. Caedmon turned from the lectern and walked back to his seat, the weight of his confession settling on the entire room. He sat down. A man returned to his lonely vigil. Professor Morka lumbered to the front, his heavy tread punctuating the silence. His gaze swept across the rows of stunned cadets. "We weigh the heart," he rumbled. "The 13th's unofficial motto. You think it means judgment of others. You're wrong. The heart they weigh is always their own." He gestured with a massive hand toward Caedmon. "They go where victory is impossible. Not to win, but to contain. They measure their souls against millions of lives and pay the price. Every time." Morka's gaze hardened. Your honor is a luxury bought with their damnation. Today's lesson isn't about judging Sergeant Caedmon. It's about understanding what he's done, so you can keep your hands clean. Ask yourself, would your precious honor survive his choices? Do you have the courage to be grateful someone else makes them for you? He turned. Dismissed! Slowly, the cadets began to file out. They moved in a wide, silent arc around Caedmon's seat, their gazes averted, as if he were a shrine to a grim god. All except Orin. The tall Centauri stopped before Caedmon's desk. He looked at the weary human, whose eyes were now closed. Orin drew himself up to his full, proud height, the way a warrior does before a revered elder. He gave a short, sharp bow from the neck, a gesture of ultimate respect. Then he, too, turned and left the quiet darkness of the room, leaving the jackal to stand his watch alone.